our fifth podcast episode of Sacred Soul Mornings, where we're going into the fifth chapter of the Tao Te Ching for two
Mhm.
generations, one microphone, zero filters, except for Southern nice ones. We're not zero filters. Let's get into it. Or zero
Gotta have a little
filters
bit.
about our ideology.
Yeah.
So the fifth chapter, you've got your translation,
And
mine.
mine's simple because we looked at it earlier, yours and mine, and I didn't know if you wanted me to begin with my simpler one,
Oh, mine's simple too. But yes, I
and
think
then
we
you
should
jump
read both of
into.
them for those who do not have an awareness of the Tao Te Ching. But if you don't have one, go get one. This book is so teeny tiny with such power. Um, get one. And I need to go get one too and take this one back to the public
Yours
library.
is big though.
Mine has a lot of commentary. Mine has a lot of
Oh.
interpretations of other intelligent humans and things later, I hope. Along the way. That's why it always has three
Mhm.
other people over history and their interpretation.
Mhm.
I can't think.
Well, the one
Commentary. That's the word, commentary.
for anybody that might be listening to this,
Hmm.
and so the first one that I read up there, was it last year or the year before
That
last?
was
I
year
don't,
before, probably.
but it was probably like, that skinny.
Yeah, with the Winnie the Pooh on it, right?
And then there was
I
the Winnie
love
the
that
Pooh
one.
one.
And the one that my husband has is in Spanish, and it's this.
Mm.
So you can attack. This is not hard. It's the easiest
Yeah,
book you'll ever read, but the
it's like
most.
80 something pages, no more than 100.
No, and we're dragging this out for like a year though.
Okay.
As a living meditation, it's making us focus on being in source, and it is changing things.
I'm trying to be the here and now and anyway, we'll get into all
I
this.
know.
But okay, you want me to do my little
Yeah, read your chapter 5. I want to hear it.
because it was one of those things that last week when we compared our titles and they seemed opposite again. So
Yeah.
let's see how this goes. Mine says no preferences. Life has no preferences. Every manifestation has its place and lives its life under the sun. So I think it means every manifestation, that means everything. Everything that's here has its place and lives its life under the sun. Therefore, we welcome everything and everyone without distinction. This is important. That is so.
It is so important.
Life continuously breathes its forms into existence, never depleting itself, always replenishing itself. Clinging to our preferences, we separate ourselves from life and suffer exhaustion. Setting still and following our breath, we find renewal.
I like your translation.
I do too. Now
Of
that I
the
know
overall
what yours.
idea. Yeah. Last week when you read that, I didn't quite get it, even though I
Mhm.
always say this is not our first time with this book, but it just has layers and layers. And you get understanding with how you live it, you know? So you can pick this book up on any day, go to a page and still get something new. And so my version is probably a more literal word for word translation, and it's called The Bellows. The Bellows, which yours talked about the air flowing too, and that was
Eventually, now that I know that
I
part
know.
of yours.
And so mine says heaven, this one, it could be taken so wrongly, but anyway,
Mhm.
heaven and earth are not kind. They treat the myriad things as straw dogs. This is a doozy. Taoists are not kind. They treat ordinary folk as straw dogs. The space between heaven and earth is like a bellows, empty but never exhausted. The more it is worked, the more issues forth from it. Many words are soon spent. Hold fast to the center. What on earth does all that mean? Oh, how fun.
Tell
So,
about straw dogs.
yeah, let's start with the straw dogs, okay? Because that might be a weird concept anyway, okay?
Yes.
I think that's a great idea. Let's start with straw dogs. So, straw dogs apparently were some kind of an effigy that was used in a ceremonial thing in ancient China. We still have these kind of things in many cultures where they create, something that's important and then it's disposable. So, they treated it in a certain way. And then when it was done, they burned them probably. They're discarded as straw dogs. And so when it says they treat the myriad things, Taoists treat the myriad things, and earth and heaven treat the myriad things as straw dogs. Um, they mean everything is disposable, that this is kind of a mirage, a little bit. And so I like to tie in the Bible because I think it's so important when things resonate.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, because when it resonates, that's what truth is, right? You know,
Mhm.
maybe not, I never used this verse in this way. I always thought of it differently. But when two or three to come together, so there I am too, or whatever. Maybe it doesn't mean just right now and two to three come together in the present. Maybe it needs a past too, when things resonate with other people, when things resonate with Lao Tzu and with the apostles and with Jesus and with us. Hey, when you got some commonality,
That's two or three together.
thought,
Yeah, that's,
oh,
yeah, it is. Golly.
oh, I love that. There's so many.
Great.
I like making peace with the Bible. I think the Bible's a great book. I think it's very misinterpreted. And I spent a lot of years not liking it. So
Mhm.
this is a full circle thing for me. Anyway, so we know that in the book of the Bible that we are a transitory creature, right? We are made of the dust of the earth. And it says Genesis flat out starts out, for dust you are and dust you shall return. And then we spend a whole lot of verses and talking about these jars, that we are jars. We are empty jars.
Mhm.
Okay. All of us are empty jars made out of mud, if you've ever done that. And so, with pottery. In Second Corinthians, Paul wrote this, and Paul would know this. He's so human. Bless his heart. He was humbled, and I spent a lot of years not liking Paul, and I had to kind of eat crow and go, boy, was I wrong about Paul, probably. He had to be humble to come to these things. It says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay, this treasure. We're carrying around this divine breath, this source, to show that this all surpassing power is from God and not from us. So we're carrying around in that. And then we have Romans 9:21. It says, does not the potter have power over the clay from the same lump to make one vessel for honor and another for dishonor? Right? You've got that. And then, this is not on my notes about these vessels. Revelations, I just talked to you about that. In the book of Revelations and chapter 3, somewhere in there at the end, it talks about those vessels being broken. And when those vessels are broken, then we'll all know, we'll arrive at the kingdom. Because our bodies are straw dogs that pass. And so heaven and earth is impartial to these straw dogs and to these jars of clay. And yeah, do you have any thoughts on that? That's very different.
Well, just now, and I probably don't have words to say
It's
what
okay.
I'm thinking or feeling, but it makes me think of spirit and then the physical. And so I'm just rephrasing, I guess, but the straw dogs or the clay jars are just our physical carnal selves.
Mhm.
But there's the spirit. And so even if all those clay jars get broken, that doesn't mean it's all over. Then the spirit of everyone is released and back, back to source or whatever, or not even bit separated really,
No.
but
We
release.
we stop identifying. We stop identifying ourselves with this straw dog. We stop identifying with these clays. We stop saying, this is me. We say, oh, I am that.
And that.
And so that is what we're talking about. We stop saying, I am this Caucasian woman. I am this dialect. I am this able or
Age.
disabled
I'm
body
the,
or
yeah,
age. That's
yeah.
all a straw dog. And the
Mhm.
energy of the Tao is impartial to that. And so is the story of the God of the Bible, and that used to be so hard for me to understand. But I didn't have a hard time with this verse because I misinterpreted it when I was younger. Of Matthew 5:45, it says, I'm going to say the flow, the Tao, causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Now, the thing that made me have a little bit of a skewed view on that when I was younger is I assumed they meant righteous and unrighteous as in good people and bad people. I was like, that meant he sends the rain on my specific church and those Baptists. No, I'm just I'm just joking. There is a pretty big beef with this group in the Baptist, but I love them now. We're all right. But back in the day, I could sit there being a little 9-year-old going, yeah, it rains on them too. They're not talking about specific people. We're talking about things. And there's also a little interesting thing here about just and unjust and evil and good. I don't think that the Tao, even they understand, people who Taoists understand this, but I don't think even people who wrote the Bible meant that we were judging people as evil and good in the way that we did in our puritanical view. And so we know that because in Greek, the word good and evil has no morality.
Mm,
Mm. It had to do with beneficial or not beneficial, in
mm,
harmony or disharmony. And
mhm.
that's subjective
Yeah,
to your own lens. That's
yeah, yeah.
subjective. So that means that no one, and boy, this is hard, but no one desires to do bad stuff unless they're motivated by their own benefit. So everyone is justified in their hearts to do what they're doing. Now, I may sit there and I've had spent my whole life doing this riddle, going, what on earth is that person thinking? That
Hmm.
horrible human. What on earth are they doing? I can't even put myself in their shoes. And I try to put myself in their shoes over and over. I'm like, I mean, let's talk about the worst of the worst. People who like
Hitler.
people. Yeah.
I'm
I'm going to
sorry.
eat all the people and eat
Oh,
them. And
yeah,
then I'm like
lots.
going, what in the world? Now, if you know me, you know I have this passion to work with people sometimes who are on this path and know people who are on this path because I'm trying to figure them out. It's part of my life journey. I go,
Hmm.
what makes you do this? And I see the redeeming qualities, which is really hard,
Hmm.
but I do. It's part of my life path. I don't know what the heck. Um, and they're justified in their mind somehow
I know.
do these things.
For their benefit, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
whatever it is. And so when we're talking about this, it says in here, Taoists are not kind. You're like, what? That's the opposite of like what Jesus would teach. Taoists are not kind. Kindness is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Taoists are in harmony. People who follow the Tao are in harmony, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily kind.
So they're not just maybe saying that that is not the motive of going on this way
It
or
is
on this
not. It
journey.
is not.
Is I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be a kind person. That's not
Yes.
the motive. The motive
No.
is to be in harmony,
Yes, it's not to be a good person. Boy, is that.
whatever kind means, whatever
But
kind
But
means.
the problem
Kind
is,
to,
as a mom, as a
mm-hmm.
mother who takes parenting very seriously, and you did too, and especially someone who taught children and teaches children, even beyond my kids, we always say, have nice hands, be good, be kind, pretty much, have kind hands, kind words, kind ears, kind fingernails, kind bottoms. Don't hit people with things. Um, Kind pencils. What on earth does that mean? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And they have
Mm-hmm.
a hard time with it too, because they're like, I am being kind to myself right now. So, being in flow is a little easier. Does this feel like I'm in flow? Does it not feel like I'm in flow? Is it warm and cuddly? Is it icky? That's that compass I teach young people about. And I'm learning it myself, and it's changed everything because
Mm-hmm.
it challenges some beliefs sometimes. I love your cat. Your cat is always in flow.
Right there.
That's a
There she
good, yeah,
is.
animals are in flow usually.
Yes, I
They
do have.
don't go make them do things that feel icky for the common good. Like
Mhm.
we talked this morning about capital punishment.
Mhm.
And what part of that feels good?
Mhm. Yeah.
What part feels good? It does feel icky. Now, it might feel powerful that you're subjugating somebody. That power thing, like when you yell at someone at the restaurant, not me, but someone else, or when you honk your horn really loud or flip them off or something, you're forcing them under you. But does it
Mhm.
feel warm and cuddly like petting your cat? No, it doesn't. And so capital punishment, does it feel warm and cuddly like petting your cat?
And what
No,
does it harmonize with?
nothing.
Where's
It
the
makes
harmony?
people who have the job of pushing the button, even though, or doing whatever else they have to do, those people
Mhm.
that are part of that job, it makes them harden their hearts,
Mhm.
even if they volunteer for it,
Yeah.
which so anyway, that's how I feel about that. Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
no, what were you going to say?
I have no idea. I want you to, we take this seriously of going with the flow in these 30-minute
I'm
episodes.
trying.
It does. It always flows. Yeah, I'm saying go ahead. It's your turn.
Well, when it mentioned the clay pots and then the clay pots that were made for, I don't know.
Honorable and dishonorable, which is one of my favorite jokes, but internal mom me jokes.
Yeah. And so then, okay.
I like to go, what kind of pot are you? No, that's not the way it's meant, probably. Maybe.
Well, and it does take everything and everybody. We've talked it takes the whole
It
body
does.
and all the parts.
Wine pots, potty pots.
But for honor and dishonor. And so I'm thinking of, I'm sorry.
I love it. Go ahead.
Again, though, I'm thinking of balance and
Yeah.
harmony. Gosh, now I can't even get back to what,
Duality.
huh?
The duality. The duality. But that, no, this
Like,
goes right into what I was going to say.
yeah,
So if you're someone who is ever considered the Bible and you're in a fundamentalist view or a literal view, which is most of us here in the Western world, actually,
yeah.
really,
In one way or another,
one or
yes.
another, unless you happen to be a Thomas Merton. Mhm.
Hmm.
Everybody else doesn't have the
And he
luxury of
started out that
getting,
way,
yeah.
probably.
Yes. And then all the professors I had that left the Abbey,
Yeah.
they maintained their belief, but they also had the door open for mysticism. Job is a
Mhm.
stumbling block. Oh, it is. Now, I've sat through many sermons trying to figure out Job, and I've read many sermons trying to figure out Job, and none of them sit. And you know me my whole life since what age? Have I read Job? I don't know.
Eight. I don't know, eight
I
years
think
old.
about Job every couple of months again. I'm like, maybe it's time to reread it. Try
Yeah.
to figure out this riddle because I'm missing something. And we know that some people don't think that Job should even fit in the canon of books. Maybe it's some other thing. Job might have been written well before anything else. It's that ancient of a text, and it kind of doesn't align in some ways. But it aligns with this worldview of the Tao. It does. In
Mhm.
Job, it says, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? And in my version, it literally says good and evil. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Job 2:10. Who are you to judge the world I created? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? So that means it says, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? It means from source, good and trouble both come from source. And that is a just very confounding viewpoint from someone who believes that only good comes from God. Now, only benefit comes from source. I could say the benefit of the whole, but the duality, that energy is impartial. So if you go against source, you may experience some crummy stuff. If you were paddling upstream because you would prefer not to float down in the nice source inspired way of your own devices, you go, oh, I have a good idea. I'm going to come up with an idea that's going to help everybody. We're going to make our own religion and we're going to become happy, peaceful people. We're going to make our own government and we're going to become happy, peaceful people. Here are all the rules. Here are all the
Mhm.
rules. You're going to become vegans. You're going to pray 5 times a day. And then you're also going to only wear these clothes. And then you have to cover your heads or uncover your heads. And you're going to shave part of your head. And then we're going to, I don't know, just like only have this book. And then only these people can read it. And we're going to drink only this Welch's grape juice, only on this day, and not clap. When you start doing that, you make yourself absolutely miserable. And then you're getting dragged. You're hanging on to a stick in the stream. You're getting sicknesses because you're making yourself sick, being stressed. You're getting societal problems with a government who's completely out of control and making people miserable because they're not led by source, they're led by their own thoughts. You're making interpersonal families relationships miserable because they can't even see love. They can't feel love and go, does this feel loving like a warm cat? I say cat because it's my thing, or a baby. Or does it feel icky? I don't know because more, I am more driven to be right.
Mhm.
And that is just completely a waste of living. And so, and I can go back on this. So in the very beginning in Genesis, when Adam and Eve, and I didn't write a lot of notes on this, so I'm gonna have to just expound it out of my mouth. Um, when Adam and Eve in the beginning ate of the tree of knowledge, right? It was they ate of the tree of knowledge because before that they were in the flow.
Mhm.
And then they decided to start having knowledge. It doesn't mean just thoughts, but it does mean taking their own thoughts and making words and labeling stuff. And that was the problem, is that they got carried away with trying to discern things of their own and stop being in the flow. They got separate of the flow. They turned their backs on it and they became wandering around in the dark. And they were
Mhm.
miserable.
Mhm.
The story of humanity and how this happened in the Bible. So,
Out,
and
out of harmony.
yeah, so I like the space between heaven and earth is like bellows, empty but never
Mhm.
exhausted. The more it is worked, the more issues forth from it. So the it just it goes from vessel to vessel. It goes from entity to entity. It goes from container to container. That's how the all the energy is just here. It just moves around and we get all worried and in a tizzy about where the energy is and who's in control of it and who's good and bad. And then in mine it says many words are soon spent. I think it's so important that Lao Tzu wrote words in here
Mhm.
because words, we've talked about this so much. I think words are a trap for ideas or little cages of ideas. And Lao Tzu knew when he wrote this book down that it could be
Mhm.
taken dogmatically. But I
Mhm.
think the reason why it's written in the most passive language I have ever seen a inspirational text written in is because he knew that. I said if I was going to be like an inspirational writer, it was going to be like the most passive thing ever. I'd be like, you could accept this or you could not. And it's not
Mhm.
my word, or maybe it's not. And
Mhm.
there's all these caveats. That's like Lao
Mhm.
Tzu. Or just burn it or not.
Mhm. Yeah. Let me read, and I'm not going to, I'm just about my, when I looked up about the bellows, because that, but I get it now, but,
Bellows. I'm gonna have to put a picture of that next to here. Mhm.
and so some of the stuff that I read said all things, this chapter emphasized no preferences, and that all things have equal value, and that includes living things or not living things. I'm looking outside trees, what have equal value. The sage, that means the wise person, somebody that's lived a while, doesn't intervene unnecessarily in the world or try to impose control.
No,
So the
it's the
sage
same
doesn't
thing.
try to impose control. Boy, that's very counter of a lot around
It
this.
is.
And
It's
not just,
very,
I'm not just, but anyway,
yeah.
allows things to unfold naturally with balance and harmony, bellows. And so then this little passage that I read talked about, you know, that there's always energy, like, you said, always energy, always, it's always. But then some things are potential energy, just stored up, waiting for when it's going to cause movement, which is kinetic energy. That's me and thinking
We
about
went down that
that.
last time. Yeah.
But it's energy, even if you don't recognize it, even if you don't feel it, even if you don't see the effects of it, it is there. That was my point of saying
And
that.
it's
Still,
patterned. And
and
it's
the patterns.
patterned.
And so then mention about the space between heaven and earth, not literally.
Yeah, but that's what he could see. Lao Tzu saw that and he said, hey, he hadn't been to space yet. I mean, he wasn't ignorant, but I just mean he hasn't been beyond heaven and earth.
Yeah.
He was
So
trying to make an
like
allegory.
heaven
Yeah.
and earth, and then the sense of it that I got when I read it, then heaven, like he was thinking of the more spiritual, maybe universe, the source of everything, and then earth is here. Gosh, I
Oh, yes.
lost the physical or the carnal or whatever, and that was the energy is all through that. And that Tao is a force. which is, potential energy, kinetic energy, push pull, whatever. Tao is a force that even if you can't see it, even if you can't feel it, it's there.
And it's
Meaning the way.
so
Meaning the way.
balanced and interconnected all the time. You think of the actual yin yang symbol
Mhm.
itself. When I had to go to Green Culture Camp, we talked about that specifically and the flag.
Screen
But
culture
it
camp.
but it influenced me
Yeah. Yeah.
as a young age to go, wait a minute, the world that's different. Yeah, anyway, that was different for me. Worldview. And then I was just thinking though, hermetics,
Mhm.
hermetics, um, as within, so without, as above, so below. That's the same thing. Um, on the microcosm level influences the macrocosm. Macrocosm influences the microcosm. We know that even, energetically and cellularly, in our bodies even, you know. Yeah, I don't explain that any better than what I just said. But we are not separate from the energy around us.
Yeah, that's glad you said that.
We're not separate from it.
We're
And
not separate from it.
we have the potential to influence it and it influence us. Mhm.
So if there's hopefulness in some of this that we're talking about, and one of the reasons why we wanted to do this together is to be able to have something positive to hang on to because
Yeah,
of all these external things that try to tell us no.
something positive to hold on to because that's it. And thankfully, at the very last verse that Lao Tzu wrote was that, lest we forget. He says, if you do all this, the more you work that, the more issues forth from it, the more you're messing around with this energy and worrying about it and stuff. Many words are soon spent. You talk about it a lot. And so I was going to say the verse, in the Bible, it says, let your yeses be yes and your no be no. Just kind of, be still and I am God. Just kind of
Mhm.
forget about all this worry part over it. I think it's okay to talk about it. I think it's okay to write about it. But the worry
Mhm.
part is the
Yeah.
problem. And so he says, hold fast to the center. What does that
Mhm.
mean? And so you were holding on to something. You're holding on to something when you were telling me that. But it's hold fast to the center. Like, so biblically, in Luke, we say, the kingdom of God is within, right? Neither shall they say, look here or look there, for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. And so Taoism teaches it's in the present now, not
The center.
here or there, it's within. Okay. And the this teacher, Jesus, taught that. And it was recorded in Luke. And so it's not the past, it's not the future, it's now. So do not worry. Now is the time of salvation. That's the key to everything.
And
Is
that here
now.
that is, that's one of those, but that little verse or verses wasn't cherry picked much. It wasn't emphasized much.
Which
All
one? Oh,
that you just read about um,
now is.
the center, and it's not here and it's not there,
I don't even
and the
remember
kingdom
listening
is
to
with.
that part at all,
No,
actually.
that's what I mean. It wasn't picked a whole bunch, and that the kingdom is within you. You know.
Yeah, and
And
like
how those are very positive words and encouraging
it would have
words.
been very encouraging.
It would have been very, if somebody had decided to give a 10-minute talk about that, that would have been great. And
Just
so
that.
we're doing it now, but
And
we're doing it now.
where is my? I don't have. I don't. Mm-mm. You know, one verse I hung on to in my youth and adulthood in the Bible that gave us little glimpse of that peace, but I didn't understand how to create it from that verse
Hmm. Hmm.
was I know it's in here. I just can't, I don't have it on. But take no thought
Hmm.
hold on. I'm
What
gonna
you
look it
shall
up.
wear, what you shall
Yeah, I
eat.
know I have it
Yeah.
memorized. I just want to be correct because I know that some of
Oh,
the people
okay.
that might be listening to us are the type of people who need to have those specifics.
Okay, I understand
know
that.
what I mean? Like
When
we
we're done doing this recording part, I want to write down those where those verses are
written them down a lot in my life, and you
I
have
know I have
too.
too, but I want to write them in this
Thank you. And I knew this. You know what?
on this piece of
That is
paper.
literally visually in my head. I knew it was Matthew 6, but I was just doubting myself because I was like, I don't know. I don't want to thumb through this whole Bible. Matthew 6:25. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment?
Mm,
You don't worry about it because you're in the present. So in this present moment, what is going on? You know, we talk about mindfulness and grounding. In this present moment, while we're talking to each other, life's fine.
mhm,
My children are in school. I don't know what's going on there, but I can imagine they're fine. My baby's in daycare. I don't know what's going on there, but I imagine she's fine. My
mhm,
husband's at work. I don't know what's going on with him at work or on his way to or from work in his car and being pulled over or not, or
mhm,
I don't know. Could that
mhm,
worry me to death right now in our political climate? Yes, it could. But do I choose to think that right now I'm fine? Yeah. And that influences me on a cellular level, on a cortisol level.
mhm, mhm. It's absolute truth.
And then the other one, which I am not even going to try to figure out where it is because I don't trust myself right now. Luke 12. I knew that was Luke 2. Consider the lilies of the field,
Yes.
how they grow. I have a version here that is different than mine. But anyway, it says, consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, they toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Meaning, um, you're not forgotten. You're not alone. Let go of the worry. There is a rhythm and you are held within it. So yeah, hold fast to the center.
There's a rhythm and you are within it.
Yeah. Even those little birdies too. That's the other part, right?
Mhm.
Birds of the air, the hairs on your head. There's so many verses that Jesus shared with his followers that say, you're part of this flow. You're important. We're all important and it's in balance. So stop worrying about it because you're going to make yourself physically sick and miserable. The only hope you have of peace is to hold fast to the center. That's the key.
Mhm.
And you can go walk a labyrinth a lot of times to do it. You can go meditate and meditate your heart out. Maybe you can go in some kind of a trance, or maybe you can just keep saying to Source that I want to know more. That's it. That's the key to heaven. And once you ask, you're on that journey. That's it. You don't have to worry about the journey. You don't have to find a guru. You don't have to find a book. You don't have to do anything. You will receive because you asked.
Mhm.
But it may not be in the way that you think.
Mhm.
And yeah. Wasn't that beautiful? I think it's so peaceful. I think that this chapter 5 was really peaceful
I
for
do
me.
too.
I
Mm.
needed it this week.
Me
And
too.
I love that it says Taoists are not kind. I'm going to memorize that because it's not about kindness.
Mhm.
And I have to say too, Taoists are not a religion. Maybe it is. I'm not using it as a religion. I don't think Lao Tzu meant it that way either. Taoists are just people who follow the flow of life, the flow of the energy of source, follow
Mhm.
God's followers. I would say that Jesus was a Taoist. Mm.
And don't get upset, people
Just
out there.
language, linguistic.
Meaning is right. Meaning
Oh
on
man,
the way, and he said he was the way.
yeah, it's the same
Oh,
thing. We're
I
talking
am the
language.
way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah, and even the word Christianity on its own has been changed so many times because of languages. So we can't get hung up on words. Words fail us because words change.
Mhm.
Language changes. We try to go back to the original languages, but even that, words change over time period, even with us. People get so upset about words and identities and,
Mhm.
you know, yeah. So I've been blessed to think about words.
How many minutes do we have left?
2 minutes, 1 minute.
Oh, here, I'm going to read the title of, if it's okay, chapter 6.
Oh yeah, good idea. See, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm excited. Mm.
Okay, here
So
we go.
teeny. It's teeny.
Mine says the mother of all.
It
And
is.
now we have female on here somehow.
As is the valley symbolism.
Oh, well, that might have something to do with feminine.
Yeah, the valley spirit. I can read mine because this is super short. The valley spirit never dies. The mystic feminine, the gate of the mystic feminine, the root of heaven and earth, like a soft silken fiber, can be used without end. Well, I'll tell you what, that was not in my upbringing. So,
Well, this will be another fun one.
it will be. It'll be another fun one. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you, everybody else. We got another subscriber. I am so inspired that
Me
people
too.
watch
Thank
this.
you. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So remember, life's not a journey. It is a journey. Whoopsie daisy. What is it, Freudian slip? Wait, I need to contemplate. What have we been saying this whole time? Yeah, life is a journey. Life is a journey, but not a checklist. Definitely not a checklist. Unless it's a checklist of happy things. So breathe deep, laugh loud, and trust the ride.
All right,
Yeah, I
thank you,
like that.
Megan. That's
Thanks.
good.